So tonight, government has secured $250 million from the World Bank as initial capital to kickstart the operations of the National Development Bank in 2020. Presenting the budget in Parliament, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta said with high level of interest generated, donors such as Department for International Development and the African Development Bank are expected to provide additional capital for the bank once it becomes operational in 2020. Apologize for that. We'll fix that situation with the audio and hopefully get to hear about plans to set up the National Development Bank. But joining me in studio is my colleague Philip Namfuri, who has all morning, all day been monitoring the budget presentation by the Finance Minister. So tell us a bit more about this bank that the government is planning to set up.
Okay, so I cannot mimic the Finance Minister, but I have what he said up here in my little head. So essentially, you know, they told us somewhere last year that they want to establish a National Development Bank to cater for the agricultural and the industrial sector. And today, he gives us some points. And I want to just read a bit of what he says. And he says, the National Development Bank will provide cheaper and long-term funding for the growth and expansion of key companies operating in agricultural and industry sectors. Now, important point there, funding of a National Development Bank is critical. The banks in the country mobilize relatively short-term deposits to lend to you and I. Now, with regards to this National Development Bank, we should expect some form of longer-term sources of funds. And that's why they were talking about the World Bank funding of 250 million. I will assume, we haven't seen the details, but I assume this has been provided on some concessional basis because of their whole orientation towards development and reducing poverty in line. And we know what agricultural and industrial development will come with a country like Ghana. So the Finance Minister says Q1 we should expect, of 2020, I beg your pardon, we should expect this bank to be operationalized. Now, what we want to pray for is that the bank really does what it's meant to do. Again, we haven't seen all the details, but we can have discussions around it. Because we tried development banking in some part of our history and we messed it up with the whole interest rate ceilings, credit rationing, etc., particularly in the 1970s. And that era of poor banking sector policies led to what we call financial repression. And we had to come out of it through financial liberalization. So we don't want to go back there. It's a fantastic idea, but we want to ensure that it's really used for what it's going to do, what it's going to be used for. And they said the National Development Bank will be an independent institution with strong corporate governance framework. Darryl, this is very important. If a board is appointed, if the board appoints management, if somebody submits a proposal for funding for an industrial agricultural project, management feels it doesn't work, we will not give them the funding. Board feels it doesn't work. We don't want any hands coming from anywhere. We don't know the shareholding structure right now. We would want to assume it will be 100% owned by the government of Ghana. If there are foreign partners in there, then there are stronger chances of proper corporate governance. Not to suggest that we can't manage the bank ourselves, but we know the issues of influence. So we don't want it in there. And they said the bank is going to be globally rated to enable it leverage on foreign private capital for this industrial and agricultural development. Foreign private capital is important. Funding sources are cheaper out there. Their financial markets are deeper. When we say depth of financial markets, you can look at it from the banking side or the stock market side. But in simple language, there's a lot of funds in there. So if they leverage on this and they find cheaper sources of funding for it, if then they take the right credit risk management, appraisals, etc., then it will work. But if we start putting in influence and all sorts of pulling strings from the back, I don't think it will achieve the desired result. So I'm sure the government knows the merits and demerits of such a system, and then they'll put the right things in place. So 2020,
we'll see how that plays out. But also this morning or this afternoon, the finance minister had to address issues concerning taxes. You know, before then we're reporting that there would be no taxes. And well, they claim there are no taxes in the budget, but some others think that is not true.
Yeah.
So, tell us about that one as well.
Yeah. So I think our colleague George Rafi had an interaction with Kaisel Atuforsen and Kweku Kwarteng, Deputy Finance Minister, and Kaisel Atuforsen said this is more like an extension of a tax, the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy, I beg your pardon, that was supposed to be taken off at the end of September of this year, and now it's been extended for another 3 years. He feels like it's more or less a very crafty way of fixing in a tax in there. But in terms of new taxes or increase in taxes, I don't think we saw anything in there. There was rather also a removal of VAT on, the name has just escaped me, VAT on management fees of mutual funds, venture capitalists, and private equity funds, which also has positive effects for companies that will exhibit high potential growth, that would source funding from venture capitalists and private equity funds. And mutual funds have a propensity to boost the capital market fortunes. So if we see a removal of VAT on management fees there, we should see more activity in there. But back to the question, I personally, in my opinion, I don't think it's a new tax, but I always say let's leave our politicians to do what they want to do. Okay,
and one other thing, I mean, finally, that is your thoughts about the whole budget. Some have also called it an empty budget, presenting nothing new except for the hostel facility for the KIAs and all of that. What's your reading of the 2020 budget?
Well, I believe around this point, a lot of people throw around a lot of words. I won't say empty because of my understanding of the financial system.
Because government had indicated they were going to try to consolidate all that they've done in the 3 years to come. And so is that what they tried doing?
Perhaps, given their theme, consolidating the gains for growth, jobs, and prosperity, I think from their theme alone, that's what they're trying to do. But I personally see a repetition of issues or more or less like an update of things. So we stated that we would establish a National Development Bank. Then we put in a budget that we're going to provide 250 million from the World Bank. I didn't see anything. If I look at other budgets and even the sequence and manner in which it was presented, I saw stark differences, or stark is too harsh, let me say some differences. But I won't say it's an empty budget. They outlined where they want to send the country to. They told us how much they want to raise in revenue, how much they want to spend. These are things, and then the targets they have for the year.
Did you see that they were being careful about spending in the 2020 election year?
I mean, Darryl, spending has gone up from what they budgeted last year and what they're budgeting this year, given the fact that it's an election year, etc. We are going to spend a bit quite more. However, we are still within the fiscal deficit of below 5% or 4.7%, as the finance minister says. So I think if we stay within the budget, given these numbers, though quite high, all will be well and good. The problem is if we cross this deficit cap of 5%, that's where the problem will be.
All right, you'll be seeing more of Philip Namfori in the later tonight. That's on JoyNews Prime, some more analysis on the budget, because the finance minister talked about a lot of things to do with the banking sector, cleanup and all of that. We're going to put all of that into perspective tonight when Philip Namfori joins Sandra Esinamafenu for more discussions on the budget. Thank you very much indeed. But still on the 2020 budget, Chief Executive of State Interest and Governance Authority, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, has disclosed discussions have begun to find innovative ways of taxing state-funded enterprises to rake in the necessary revenue to support the 2020 budget. According to him, some of the enterprises have been directed to engage with the Ghana Revenue Authority in making the process easier. Mr. Asamoah Boateng spoke to Joy Business in Parliament after the budget presentation.
Revenue from several state enterprises have been low due to inefficiencies in their operations. Again, failure to pay taxes to the state has also created a revenue gap for infrastructural development. Chief Executive of the State Interest and Governance Authority, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, says his outfit has begun engagement with the Ghana Revenue Authority to find a lasting solution to the revenue challenges from the sector.
Well, it's a question of trying to understand what taxes are they looking for. Because I remember last week, GRA and I had a meeting, very serious, because there were other my companies, they were trying to go in and find out what's going on. So I engaged them and realized that there are areas that they should not be taxing them. But there are areas also like the VAT, which automatically that the company collects must go to via GRA. So really, it's a question of myself and the Ministry of Finance and the GRA having a collaboration. And what I intend to do is to put in their performance contracts, their statutory obligations, so that I can supervise that they are paying the statutory obligation. It's a kind of collaborative work which we are trying to do to bring in the money.
He has also assured the issue of corporate governance will be key in promoting efficiency.
I'm employing a good corporate governance as a key, because really, if the board and the management are not synchronizing, they cannot work. It's unity. If you don't have a unified group or team, and so that's where areas I'm focusing on. Then what happens is that once you've done the corporate governance, you need them to respond to the center, which is the SIGA, the State Interest and Governance Authority, so that supervisory role and monitoring and compliance can be applied. So if they go wrong, you can bring them to light.
Meanwhile, the Finance Minister, Ken Oforiatta, is confident the government will generate the necessary revenue to fund infrastructure projects in the country.
Now, the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry has launched a credit union aimed at providing credit facilities to SMEs under flexible payment terms with low interest rates. Speaking at the launch of the union, President of the Chamber, Dr. Nanape Jedanko, so the first of the move is to give SMEs the wherewithal to remain a force in the African market. Apologies, we'll bring you that story subsequently. Now, as government announces plans to expand its One District, One Factory initiative in the 2020 budget, we are taking you to the production facility of an entrepreneur who is innovatively processing and packaging less popular food items. Our report next in the Joy Business Fan.
The sound of a milling machine grinding melon seeds. We call it here in Ghana agushi. The protein-rich seeds used in stews and soups. Now imagine agushi stew with smoked fish and some boiled yam. That definitely should be a treat. At least Mildred Akotia agrees. She's founder and CEO of Royal Cedars, a startup that innovatively processes and packages the ground seeds as well as roasted peanuts. Mildred initially wanted to pursue medicine, but when the opportunity never came, she turned to another passion: food.
I observed that West Africa was home to a lot of amazing superfoods, and these superfoods are very little known to the rest of the world, and only because we talk very little about them, we don't make as much noise about them as the Western world do theirs. So I said to myself, why don't I then go on a journey that would bring out some obscure superfoods in West Africa and transform them into globally recognized brands.
She quit working as a food safety regulator to start her own business in this shipping container transformed into a production facility. But why melon seeds?
I picked agushi because I thought that the consumption is so high in West Africa. However, it's almost becoming like a lost crop of Africa, meaning that there's very little research done with regard to agushi, there's very little promotion on agushi, but it is so nutritional and actually a powerhouse for nutrients. So my flagship product I started was ground agushi. Melon seeds, I call it the little miracle seeds. Agushi, you won't believe, is 32%. It's about 32% protein, and that is huge and massive. It's naturally cholesterol free because it's of plant origin. It has very little carbohydrates, so for vegans and vegetarians and those on a low carb diet, agushi is just perfect for you.
The melon seeds are sourced locally and sometimes in neighboring countries.
Yeah, raw materials come in very dirty from suppliers and from the farms, and so we have to spend a good amount of time cleaning raw materials out and taking out a lot of extraneous materials like twigs and stones and fine sand, leaves and all sorts of dead parts of insects and all that. Once we've done all the sorting and brought the raw materials to the standard that we want, we dry them. We have dehydrators for all that, and then we have our own milling machines that we use to mill the agushi. After milling the agushi, we allow the agushi to cool, and then we start doing the packaging.
What makes Mildred's products stand out is the packaging. Agushi powder is usually sold in the markets in measuring containers, but now can be found in major supermarkets thanks to Royal Cedars.
We have an ever-increasing urban population, so I thought that, targeting middle class to high-end class, targeting the export markets will be a good thing to go for. And the whole idea is that we want to make West African foods famous, and we want to give them a good brand image so that wherever we find them, they can be comparable with the Western products.
Gradually, Royal Cedars products are catching the eye of the public. She's added roasted peanuts to the food items she processes. Beyond processing food, Mildred also has to manage her business and strategize on how to meet her business goals. But what has the 3-year journey been like?
So we can talk about some successes, like somebody picks up agushi and thinks that this is not made in Ghana, but you tell the person this is made in Ghana and is made by us. And I think that is a good success. For me, that's priceless. The fact that you're able to brand a West African ethnic product like this, that is comparable with any other Western product. I think that is priceless.
Ultimately, Mildred wants her products to hit the export market.
We are introducing more products, so we are always looking out and exploring how we can increase our product offering. We are introducing roasted cashew in a few months. Latest by February or March, we should be ready to do that. So yes, we actually have peanut butter that that is in the development stage, so it hasn't gone too commercial, but we want to see how we can stabilize the peanut butters and get it commercial and be on the shelves.
Mildred Akotia is definitely a woman on a mission to transform food processing here in Ghana and make an impact across the world.
All right, there's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. All you need to know about the 2020 budget, including government securing $250 million to establish a national development bank in 2020. Also big on Joy, all the updates from the finance minister's presentation, plus other stories making news throughout the day. My name is Darryl Carl. Thanks for watching.